Alright everybody, how's it going? Quancredible here. A very controversial chapter already, and it hasn't even been out for that long. Black Clover chapter 214. There's not a lot to the chapter, but there's definitely a lot to talk about in terms of what happened in it. So I'm just gonna, same as always, a little quick review, and then we're really gonna talk about the big thing at the end. So the chapter kicks off literally right when Lich is going away or whatever. Partry's already left. Rades, who, this is something that I've said numerous times before, that Radius has always been around here for a reason, such as like being kept up in the story, and finally fulfills that reason and uses his magic to put Partry's soul in Lich's body, which is something that I've said it was going to happen. I've heard other people say it. Like it's not like I'm the only person who thought this, but I'm just happy to see Partry get to stay in this story. Cause I don't know if you remember last chapter, I was like, I kind of feel like upset that Partry's leaving. It feels like it's like way too soon for him. So I'm glad that he gets to stick around. Also in the translation that I read, once Rades did it, he kind of made it about himself, and then Asta remarked about that, and that kind of made me laugh. Another odd thing about this is that, or I guess it's not really odd, it's just interesting, is that he says to Valtos, like, let's get out of here, or let's leave, and, like, Valtos doesn't say anything, so this makes me wonder, is Valtos going to try to stay, or am I reading too much into it, and he just literally didn't say anything back? I don't know. But anyway, back to Partry. I'm also very happy to see that him and William will actually finally get to interact. One of the interesting things was, again, we're going to have to wait for the official translation to figure out exactly what he said, but William says to him, I had so much I wanted to say to you. Which again, I could be reading too much into this, but if they shared the same body, shouldn't they have just shared the same thoughts more or less? Or did it not actually work out in the way that we thought it did, and they really couldn't communicate all like that in between each other? I guess we're gonna have to wait more to where they explain how their relationship exactly worked. But pretty much after that, William asked Yami to take him to Julius's body, whilst everyone else began the recovery efforts, like immediately after that. We got like Nozel, everybody else is kind of helping out to save people and dig everybody out. And then in the midst of that, we have Asta being healed by Mimosa, and then Lumiere just more or less thanking them for putting an end to all this. It's also important to note that Lumiere knows that there's a devil in Asta's grimoire. Like, he mentions it. I mean, he doesn't say anything out loud, which I thought was odd that he didn't mention it, but I guess he didn't really see a reason to, which is true. I mean, in my personal opinion, mentioning that there's a devil inside of Asta's grimoire might not be the best thing for him. Probably was the smarter thing just to not say anything. To this point, that like Asta reveals to Noel and Mimosa that is the first Wizard King and Nero. It's also really funny to see that Asta and Lumiere actually have a small conversation about how Asta's gonna be just like him and all that other stuff. But towards the end of that, Lumiere's body really starts to break apart, to which there's nothing else that like anybody can really do about it. His time is done. So he also instructs Nero to stay and not try to come with him or whatever, because he after his fight with Lich, he was tapped. Like he should have died all those years ago after that huge fight. So I mean, it is, I guess, fitting that this would be kind of the end for him. It was a little sad, not gonna lie, but as he said, he was very content with how everything had went down. He got to see his ancestors, got to see Lich again, he got to make everything right. So I guess there's not really any much better terms than you can leave on, to be honest with you. And then finally we get to the end. This is the most controversial part right here that lots of people have been upset about or have mixed feelings about. Yami and William get to the place where Julius's body was supposed to be, and then as soon as they get there or whatever, they are shocked to see that it is Julius once again, but this time as a younger child or a kid or a preteen or whatever. Now this is really funny because we've seen him quote unquote die when he was fighting Partry, but it's clear like at this point that Tabata only wanted us to think he was dead. He didn't actually die, which makes sense because I mean, granted, you could get people that could argue like, no, he died, but it's like we never actually got confirmation that he was dead. Like the only person that said he was dead was like Partry said he was dead, and that's only because he thought he killed him. Like Yami, I guess, technically never checked, and like no one else ever really checked. So like I don't really think anybody can say that he came back to life when he like really never died in the first place. That's the only kind of issue there. And I've seen some people be kind of upset that like, oh, death doesn't mean anything, or when someone dies they should stay dead. And like typically I agree, but honestly, with like the thing with death in stories, granted, character deaths do add tons of development to all the characters in the series that it affects, but at the same time, if someone comes back to life and it's for a good reason, like it makes sense, or someone sticks around for a reason that makes sense, like if it's written well and explained well, then I can't really be mad at it in terms of the execution. I mean, granted, you could not like it, and that's like on a personal preference, like that's an opinion thing if you don't like how a story goes, but that doesn't make it like meaningless or actually bad. I mean, when you think about it, Julius has time magic. Like he can control time to an extent. So him being able to reverse time to keep himself alive really doesn't sound that far-fetched in a world filled with magic. So I mean, there's that. I mean, honestly, no story really has done death that bad outside of Dragon Ball. It's really not that bad. Like I didn't see people up in arms when Pain killed Kakashi and Hinata and brought them back. It's one of those, in my opinion. So a lot of people have been speculating the mark on his head is what held the time magic. And I guess it's not really a speculation. It's basically true at this point, or more or less confirmed at this point, that he was saving up time in that mark on his head, to where if something like this were to happen, he'd be able to come back to life. That's basically all that happened. So I'm going to explain to you more or less how he did it. So that mark on his head, I guess he was accumulating time magic in that mark, just for if an event like this happened, he'd be able to revive himself, or not necessarily revive himself, but revert himself to a younger age to keep himself alive. Kind of similar to how like Tsunade and Sakura gather that chakra like all the time in that little like dot on their head. So he did something similar to that, just with time magic, which again isn't that far-fetched to believe that something like that is possible. Now with that being said, I don't think that Julius is like immortal or anything. I mean, I guess in a sense, just from the information that we have and the way his magic works, I guess technically if he keeps taking time from people, he could technically, I guess, just keep reverting his age, like so he could live forever. That one sheet of paper in front of him, I believe that is how his grimoire was in the beginning, like when he first got it. I always thought it was weird that he had that giant coverless floating like endless book in the sky. And I was like, there's no way he could have received that in the beginning. So what I think is that this sheet of paper is how it initially was, and it just gradually added pages to become that thing that we saw floating in the sky. That's what I think. That's just a theory out about Julius's grimoire. I'm not for sure if that's true or not, but that's just what I think. Also, this makes me wonder about something for William, because I guess that means that technically Partry never killed Julius. I don't know. The punishment for this William and Partry thing with Julius still being alive is going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out in the future chapters. So let me know in the comments down below how you feel about Julius returning into the story. Let me know how you feel about Partry coming back, and if you guys are for it or not. I mean, granted, I can understand that there are going to be some people who don't like it, but you know, that's totally cool. I'm pumped for it. I'm excited for it. So yeah, like and share if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys next time.